past that has left a continent in tatters and a continent where there has been a lot of conflict. And sometimes we see deals being struck in countries. And we see it in South Africa, and South Africa is no different when we see what is playing out within the ruling party at this point in time, the ANC, factionalism, the struggle for power, and the like. And this morning we joined by political analysts on African politics, and he's in studio with me this morning, Alex Mpundu. Alex, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, now obviously, you are an expert in politics in Africa. And before we get to the DRC, and I know you've covered a number of countries in Africa, and looking at Africa because of this colonial past. And sometimes we see the colonizers that have actually left this continent in conflict, in tatters, and to date, many countries have achieved independence, like the DRC, but we still see many problems in these countries.
Well, I think you are right. Talking about colonization, I think colonialism is definitely the bedrock and foundation of all our issues. I mean, at some point, we all have to, we experienced the hatred of colonial powers. We fight just to be considered as equal. There was slavery, and after slavery, they came colonizers. So you can expect a lot of division, a lot of confusion, a lot of problems on the African continent because of what we have gone through.
Well, certainly. And I know this morning we are talking about the DRC, and the DRC has been no different to many other countries around Africa, but also having suffered a lot of tragedy as well, where we've seen thousands and thousands of people who have obviously lost their lives. And this also as a result of colonialism, but also at the same time, the world on DRC and its resources, a country that has been very rich in resources. We all know about blood diamonds, and the like. We've seen thousands of women that have obviously been raped and brutalized as well. And just, generally, it's been chaos all around in the DRC.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, you need to understand the history of the country. DRC is, I'm going to start from the 60s. By population is the third or the fourth largest by population on the African continent. It's also a huge country, but it was involved in so many problems from the 60s. A man who understood his identity, a man who fought, who was a freedom fighter, who was a Pan-Africanist, Patrice Lumumba, died only after 17 weeks. So now you can understand where the division comes from. After his loss, I believe, in my humble opinion, that there was a division that came out of the trauma of a loss. And what happens then, it's an infight occurs. That's when it all started. So there were division, that's when they started tribalism, the ethnic cleansing, and all of that. So it has grown from that up to date.
Exactly. And I think the thing is, when you look at personalities like Patrice Lumumba and also people like Nelson Mandela, these are far and few on the African continent because these were the unifying forces. But the moment these people had gone, and this is where we see the situation unraveling itself as it is right now. And we see right now this shady political alliance actually playing out in the DRC.
Yeah. I mean, well, you need to understand that we had our forefathers on the African continent who were for people. You see the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of Julius Kambarage Nyerere, the likes of Nelson Mandela. All these guys, they came together to fight for the unity of Africa. But then remember, and that's, I think there should be an end to every term of politics. A lot of politicians, when they come in with the noble intentions. But what they end up doing over time, it's creating a world where a lot of the time it's dictatorship. Then it defeats the purpose, the initial purpose that they had for the countries. When I talk about that, you remember the likes of Muhammad Gaddafi. He was a great politician, who was a great man who loved his country, who loved the continent, who wanted the continent to have one passport, who wanted the continent to have one currency. But then when you become a dictator, that defeats the initial purpose.
But the question to you, Alex, would be, what lies behind this dictator, or who is behind this dictator?
I think we are still colonized. The colonization is still alive. The slavery is still real. In South Africa, the apartheid is still there. So it's difficult to. Yes, some people said we still have to figure out how to overcome these implicit obstacles that has been placed our way. We must remember that freedom was just the beginning. So the journey is still on. We cannot be confused by us saying no, now DRC it's independent sovereign states, South Africa the same, Zimbabwe the same, but the colonizers are still alive and they're becoming more stronger by now.
Exactly. And we know the scramble for Africa from right across the entire world now. And it's not only the colonizers who colonize the continent, but from all over the world, the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, the Europeans. Everybody wants a piece of the African pie.
And you know, I've always told people that the scars of 1885 Berlin Conference were more than just territorial boundaries, borders in your case. But in many cases, not only land was demarcated, but the humanity, the brotherhoods, that togetherness. For instance, Ruzizi River and Lake Kivu, in the case of DRC, which separate the two countries, DRC and Rwanda, as well as Burundi. So those ones who have found themselves in the DRC after the partition, they are being marginalized and treated as second-class citizen. But that's a common issue that we've got across the continent. You go to East Africa, you've got Somalian in Kenya who are Kenyans, and you've got Somalian who are Somali in Somalia. You've got Maasais in Kenya, you've got Maasais in Tanzania, but there's border in between. Come to Southern Africa where you're all too familiar. You go to Limpopo here, this is South Africa. You've got Tsonga people who are South African. You've got them in Mozambique. You've got them in Zimbabwe. You have them all the way to Zambia. These are same people, same facial features, same culture, same language, but there's border in between. Look at the map of South Africa. Lesotho, it's inside South Africa as well as Swaziland. Now you can't tell Sothos who are in South Africa to go back to Lesotho because that's where they come from. It's unlogic. We all came from somewhere in Africa. So the confusion that the power of colonizers that they had, it was about dividing people. That was the weapon, and that's still having the effect of the compound of colonialism still alive in African people.
Right. Now, let's just look at the current conflict, obviously, in this whole political alliance that obviously doesn't seem to be working. We're looking at President Felix Tshisekedi, and then at the same time, we've got Joseph Kabila. And just looking at, if you could just paint a picture of the background as to what the issues are at this point in time in terms of this alliance.
Well, it's all about unbalanced power. DRC has been a war zone for the longest time, as you know. We've had Mobutu Sese Seko, who was a dictator for 30 years. Straight after him, there came Kabila, who defeated his regime. Laurent Kabila, the father of the Joseph.
Yes.
Then he also was assassinated in his office. Then the son took over from 2001 to 2001. He has been there also until 2018. Which we can call it a dictatorship. But then there came time where there was pressure from people. The country could not feel him anymore. He came to a point where he organized the election, but the election got postponed over time. But finally, the election occurred. Then what happened? They formed a coalition government. Felix Tshisekedi. It's unfair to say that there was a fair and free election. Obviously, the election was rigged. But however, Felix became a president. President Felix Tshisekedi became a president from 2018, but in a coalition government. So now that's a tight corner to lead. So what happens, I think that's when you hear the scholars talking about decolonizing the systems. In your British colony, it's different. We are in the DRC, the Belgium colony. So in every state in Africa that goes to election, it has three arms. You've got the executive, which is that's where the president is and a member of cabinet. Then you've got the legislature, which holds in the DRC. It's called parliament. So there's a general assembly and senator. Then you've got the judiciary. So in the case of the DRC, there's what they call parliament majority. And that's what formed the prime minister. We don't have the deputy president. It's a prime minister. The coalition was between, it's called Coalition FCC Cash. So the former president had what they call FCC, and the current president Tshisekedi had Cash. So there's discomfort, there's a crisis in the DRC governance culture right now. The president has to realize that no, there's something that's not going all right here. I cannot make easily the decision as the president of the country. Remember, he has to consult the prime minister. The prime minister has to consult the general assembly, which caused the problem, which caused a tough corner for him to maneuver, to operate in that political system. So he decided to call what he called the presidential consultation, just to see how he can resolve these issues. And that's what caused the crisis that's there today.
Well, Alex, I want to put you on hold. Obviously, we are going for an ad break. And just to remind our listeners that we have got Alex Mpundu in studio with us this morning. He is a political analyst and on African politics in particular. And this morning, we are talking about the Democratic Republic of Congo.
As winter grips the Northern Hemisphere, refugees, IDPs, and other vulnerable communities are doing all they can to survive. Winter is already the hardest time of year, and in the current global context, this year could be even worse. With your help, the Al Imdad Foundation is delivering life-saving winter warmth items in 12 countries globally, including Syria, Palestine, Yemen, Kashmir, and Pakistan. So be warm-hearted and sponsor a winter pack at just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Dad, well, I've been chatting with an investment broker today and...
Broker? Did the broker tell you that our economy is a mess? There's bushfires in Australia, America wanted World War III, and now the coronavirus is traveling around the world.
Well, I also thought about purchasing some crypto.
Crypto? What's that, like another pyramid scheme? I don't trust what I can't see.
There's an apartment in Belito.
So whole your family will be asking to stay there for free. And what if the government takes it away, eh?
Dad, I don't think it works like that.
I'll tell you what works. Gold. At your age, I invested in gold coins and it paid for your university fees and your wedding. No contracts, no agreements. Your investment is in your hands and you own it.
With a 70% growth in only 5 years, do you still doubt gold investment? Contact RJ Coin today, 031 202 4701, or visit them at 151 Stephen Lamini Road in Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Fabric Direct, now open at 224 Brickfield Road, Overport, Durban, offering you a variety of dress fabrics, curtaining, upholstery, wallpaper, and deco. Fabric Direct, quality, price, and a range that speaks for itself. 224 Brickfield Road, Overport, Durban. Fabric Direct, definitely worth a visit.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
The time is just gone 9:33 a.m. as we continue our discussion with Alex Mpundu in studio with us this morning. And we are talking Africa, we're talking Democratic Republic of Congo and the developments in that part of the world. Now, Alex, to continue, and obviously, you know, before the break, we were talking about the elections, and clearly there has been some dispute, and there have been huge question marks that have been raised with regard to the legitimate winner of the polls. But clearly this arrangement between Tshisekedi and Kabila is definitely not working out. And behind the scenes, there seems to be a lot more playing out in terms of secret deals and alliances being formed. And this is possibly the nature of African politics, where, a lot takes place behind the scenes.
All right. It's difficult to say with President Felix Tshisekedi, as I was just mentioning their coalition with the former President Joseph Kabila. It was a deal. And you can understand that's a tough corner to operate. In fact, I'll go as far as saying President Felix Tshisekedi hasn't been leading in any kind of way. He's just been mitigating risk. So now what he came to finalize as his final decision, he said that he's going to call on presidential consultation. And what does that mean? It's speaking with the people. So he consulted everyone, the musician, the old politician, the chiefs, the comedian, so that he gets the correct understanding what's happening on the ground. Then he decided to requalify the parliament majority, so that parliament, the new majority, they can appoint a prime minister, and that's where the confusion is. So there's unbalanced power here from Kabila and Tshisekedi. What FCC is saying, it's saying no. What he's saying, it's violate the constitution.
Exactly. And I think one of the key issues here is it's not what's happening right at this point in time. There is a long-term plan because, as you mentioned, that the DRC obviously has had quite a few dictators. And I suppose when you look at Tshisekedi eyeing the future, looking at, future elections as well to try and consolidate his power base.
Well, it's difficult to say about Tshisekedi because we're still going through it. Felix's story is far from being done. We don't really know what the advisors are telling him. We don't know what his plan is. What we do know is that literally from the beginning of his term up to now, the country has been going from the frying pan to the fire. That's all we know. We hope when he get down to the business of leadership, he will have a plan. Whether that plan will work, we'll see.
I think the key issue when we're talking about leadership, and this seems to be a problem right across the entire African continent, is when one looks at leadership, there is a vacuum. There is a huge vacuum as far as leadership is concerned, in the true sense of what you and I would understand a leader to be: a leader for the people, a leader for his country, a leader for the betterment of the continent. And while we're talking of the continent, I just want to touch a bit on the African Union, because when we see these type of issues or shenanigans that are playing out in the background, where does the AU actually fit into this?
Well, AU, I don't know what his role is, because DRC has experienced a lot on the watch of so-called peacekeepers from United Nations, including South Africa as well. And so many countries that has deployed their soldiers in the DRC, so-called peacekeepers, to watch what's happening and really reinforce peace, to impose peace in the DRC. But that has never happened. I think the issues of DRC, it's in between the people of DRC. The peacekeepers are just there to support the current government.
Now, again, when you look at the AU and just fulfilling just a role as peacekeepers, rather than looking at it from a diplomatic perspective, brinkmanship, using political expediency, and this is something that seems to be lacking. And I'm not too sure whether it's only limited to the AU, but when you look at all other bodies, international bodies, when you look at similar bodies, you look at the Arab League, for instance, you look at the European Union, you look at even the United Nations as well, and not fulfilling that role where you are looking at long-term solutions for the countries.
I completely agree with you. I mean, it's upset things to think that they're gonna be solution coming from outside, especially in Africa. That won't happen. I don't know. They can be a little bit of push, but I don't think that will happen. For instance, just going back a little bit, President Felix Tshisekedi has had a speech on the 23rd of October. And he said that that's when he's going to start the consultation. And afterwards, he made a speech about what the result of it. But not only that's going to cause, that can incite the crisis in the country, which could easily provoke any type of war or genocide. That's some presidents of Africa need to be careful about their inflammatory statements. Because what you don't realize there is that it can incite any form of genocide or any form of violence in the country. As people, as ordinary people of DRC, they don't want war. They are very tired of war. So if you are provoking the war and everybody can see that, I don't think that's a good way of operating as a new president. Of course, there's difficulties in his constituency between the former president and himself, and what he's thinking of doing is correct. Whatever he is planning is okay. But if it's something that's, again, it's gonna go on the side of war, of bringing a new war in the DRC, for me, that's where there's a concern of people. There should be another way of moving the country forward. There should be a way of imposing peace. There should be a way of pushing the economy forward. But then that won't happen with what they are doing at the moment.
Could there be external forces playing out behind people like Tshisekedi or Kabila as well?
I think I'm torn about that. But I think leaders of Africa has always been led by external forces. That's not something new. But the issue here is there's no such a thing like a person who knows all. What you do then, you surround yourself with the people that make up for the shortcoming that you have. That's a good leader. What I found surprising to Felix Tshisekedi is, I mean, Felix has lived in a foreign country before. He lived in Belgium before he ran for presidency. So he is in the best position to have a correct understanding of what it means to be an African. He can't be.
But could he be?
That's good possible as well. I think so.
That's what I'm saying is, the fact that you mentioned he lived in Belgium, and we find that in many instances, I can use a number of leaders. For instance, I even know, like for instance, Saudi Arabia, where you're looking at the Crown Prince at the moment, MBS, was actually groomed in the United States of America to fulfill a certain agenda. And this is why when you look at countries like Saudi Arabia, and I suppose Africa is no different.
Has no difference at all. The problem here with the president, Felix Tshisekedi, when he came in with a great idea, with the noble intention. Obviously, he found the difficulties. That's a nature. But then when I say he doesn't understand the general problems of Congolese, it's either he understood and he chose to sacrifice the truth. But what you don't realize, when you're sacrificing the truth, you could be sacrificing people's life. But more than importantly, man, when there's tension between DRC, I was born myself in a war zone, in ethnic cleansing, in military dictatorship, and growing up in that kind of political spheres, and having come to South Africa and being a foreigner, it taught me how to understand the conflict of rights. We probably need a president right now in the DRC who's about the unity of people, who understood the conflict, the internal conflict of DRC. If you are going to sacrifice the truth just to get the political mileage, that's very dangerous.
Exactly. And I think, obviously time is of the essence, and it has actually flown so quickly. Just looking, the way forward in terms of, your thoughts, because I suppose Joseph Kabila has also got similar intentions as well. I mean, he's had the taste of power. His family has had the taste of power. And, when one says, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts even more. And Joseph Kabila obviously has got ambitions as well.
Completely. I mean, I think the way forward from now on, there has to be a dialogue, in my humble opinion. There have to be a compromise between those coalition. I mean, we cannot speak of coalition now. It's gone already. So what he wants, the President Felix Tshisekedi, is to have his own parliament majority. He want to have the government that he's gonna lead, not leading from different powers. But I don't see the practicality of it. That's where there's a problem. If he's able to do it in a very correct way, then he could be a successful president. His plan would be successful. But it's very dangerous. Remember, Kabila has been on power for a long time. So he is not also gonna compromise at a very easy arrangement.
Well, Alex, I must say thank you to you for coming on and taking time out and joining me in studio this morning. I must say it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think obviously you and I would be interacting a lot more, looking at Africa, looking at African politics, because it is going to be in the spotlight still for a very, very long time. But for now, thank you. All the best to you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
That's Alex Mpundu joining us in the studio this morning. And I must say, very, very absorbing and interesting discussion that we've had, and giving us even a more detailed understanding. And when we look at South Africa, looking at the DRC at this point in time, South Africa, no different. We know behind the scenes there is always this power struggle that is taking place. We've heard of factionalism within the ruling party. We heard of people lobbying behind the scenes, and also with most recent developments in the country, Ace Magashule versus Cyril Ramaphosa, a lot more that we can expect going into the future. We're going for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by Gift of the Givers, Dr.